All eyes are on the West Asian region after Israel vowed revenge from the Hezbollah group for the Golan Heights rocket attack. Even as the Iran-backed group denied any involvement, Prime Minister Netanyahu convened a security meet to decide on the retaliation that Israel will now do. Before I get into a discussion on this, take a look at this report on what exactly transpired in the Middle East over the weekend. Is Israel on the brink of war with Hezbollah? This is a question that has gripped the entire world since the July 27th rocket attack on Golan Heights killed 12 children and teenagers while they played football. The victims were between the ages of 10 and 16 years. The attack was the deadliest on Israeli civilians since the October 7th Hamas bombardment. Israel has claimed that a Falak-1 Iranian rocket was sent towards Golan Heights and was fired by Hezbollah. Even as Hezbollah denies all connection and involvement in the act, tensions between Tel Aviv and the Lebanon-based militant group are on the rise, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing that Hezbollah would pay a heavy price for the rocket attack. In an overnight strike, Israel attacked Hezbollah's terror targets in southern Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu called an emergency meeting where Israel's security cabinet authorized him and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, to work towards a retaliatory attack. Meanwhile, amid the escalating tensions with Hezbollah, Lebanon has opened diplomatic channels with Israel to avoid any retaliation from the Jewish state. Countries across the world, including India, have cautioned their citizens from traveling to Lebanon. United Nations and Israel's allies have called for maximum restraint. But is Israel listening? All right, let me get in my guests on the show. Tonight, I'm joined by General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert. I'm also joined by Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitical expert. Good evening and namaskar to both of you. Let me start with you, General Kulkarni. What sort of revenge now do we expect from Prime Minister Netanyahu? An overnight strike has already been done, but he's vowed a greater and a bigger revenge from Hezbollah.
Well, I would say that Israel, much that it is doing, it expects a little bit of involvement of the United States to ensure the restraint is imposed on Hezbollah, and restrictions will also be imposed on Israel, because the coercive diplomacy alone now can help on an imminent attack that might just result in something catastrophic. Because even when you look back in 2006, a small incident of kidnapping where Nasrallah later on obviously felt very sad and very bad, and he accepted that it would not have gone had they expected such kind of a retaliation. But now, with the Gaza repercussions not being as much as they were expected, but I think this retaliation and this kind of maybe resulting into a war might be catastrophic, just not to that particular, but to the entire world. The supply chains will be affected, energy will be affected, tourism will be affected, investment will be affected. And I think in that context, I see that Israel is aware of the capabilities of Hezbollah. Israel knows it is not Hamas, it is Hezbollah, with huge armory of over 120,000 to about 2 lakh rockets, maybe guided, maybe unguided, with ranges varying from 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers to about 200 kilometers, a sizable number of them. It has a huge number of quadcopters. It also has IEDs. It may not have armor, but it also has ability to utilize the armor which is placed in Syria. It knows the Iranian getting involved into the war should it. So Israel is aware, but yet Israel would not accept what Hezbollah has done and would want to show that it is still on the higher pedestal and can bulldoze through Hezbollah. But Hezbollah
which is what I was coming to, General Kulkarni. The fact that you, I, United States, United Nations, India, all of us understand, including Israel also understands that this is not Hamas, this is Hezbollah, Professor Nalapat. But the fact of the matter is that is Prime Minister Netanyahu listening to his allies? Is he listening to the United Nations? elections, or is he more inclined towards displaying a show of strength domestically and globally?
Well, look, I'd like to say that this is only a second attack from Lebanon on the Druze community. They are not Israeli. They don't want to be citizens of Israel. Less out of the 20,000 or so Druze who are in the Golan Heights, less than 250 are Israeli citizens. The others have refused to become Israeli citizens. That's point number one. Point number two, they're a Shia sect. Whether they like it or not, they're a Shia sect. And Shia Islam has got many sects, and the Druze are from Shia Islam. And may I also point out that the Druze believe themselves to be Syrian. That's why they're not accepting Israeli citizenship. They say we are Syrian. They say the Golan belongs to Syria, and we are Syrian. Of course, the fact is the Golan is never going to be surrendered by Israel for simple reasons, essential for security of Israel, and it is, of course, very dangerous for the security of Damascus. But Israel, I don't believe any government in Israel is going to surrender the Golan Heights to Syria or to anyone else. Having said that, I'd like to point out that yes,
So we can expect an expansion and increased war between Israel and Hezbollah in the next few days.
I'd just like to add one thing that, so far as Netanyahu is concerned, he wants to bring the U.S. into the war, and it's therefore convenient to say it's Hezbollah. Now, he's playing a game of chicken with Hezbollah. He's played this game earlier also, some months earlier, and fortunately, nothing much happened. No escalation. Again, that game of chicken is on. Now, he launched drones. Now, I want to do something else. The question is, Hezbollah will say, we're not chicken. And then they do something. And then the whole thing escalates beyond control and drags in big powers, including the United States. And when that happens, the Iranians as well. It will, as the general says, be a total catastrophe. And I think Netanyahu is playing with fire. Whether Hezbollah is playing with fire or not, I do not know. But I very much doubt that this attack on a non-Jewish community, Hezbollah has launched several attacks on Jewish communities. These are non-Jewish communities. This attack, it's very unlikely that Hezbollah would have carried it out. Thank you.
Okay, General Kulkarni, I also want to get in the part where we talk about United States and its role in this entire war. Do you think United States has now just turned into a mute spectator where it's got its own double standards and hypocrisy as far as lip service goes on ending the war, but supplying, the side that it supports in both the wars with arms and ammunition? But how do you think America can play a more integral role in stopping Israel? Will Prime Minister Netanyahu actually listen to the United States, considering also the fact that US now has presidential elections, they are in election mode?
I think Mr. Netanyahu might wanting to show an action that it would be able to take on Hezbollah, but even on October 11, Israel had requested the United States that it be allowed to attack Hezbollah, and the United States did tell them very clearly that attacking Hezbollah would open up, it's extremely difficult and better you handle only Hamas. So it continued to handling Hamas. Now at this point of time, with Hezbollah being, Hezbollah and all have used not more than 4,000 rockets so far, an armory of 2 lakh with them, and maybe guided, unguided, whatever it be, ranges 10 to 100 kilometers, can ruin Israel. And it is absolutely catastrophic for Israel to be able to face Hezbollah. They know what happened in 2006. Much that Israel may have lost only 100 soldiers and Hezbollah may have lost 500, but something in which there was devastation of Lebanon. Beirut was totally destroyed. And now with this kind of a thing, there might be destruction. Israel definitely has air supremacy. Israel definitely has tanks to themselves. But the kind of 30,000 fighters, 20,000 reserves, almost 2 lakh of all kinds of rockets and missiles, Iranian support over there, tanks available to them in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon itself, the kind of tunnels that it has made. Israel knows it's not going to be easy, and it is also the test of US leadership, that US leadership has to now stand up to ensure if the world requires peace, Israel has to be constrained. Israel has to be told in no uncertain terms that what the professor said, absolutely playing with fire, it's not worth it because it is going to get trapped. Enough is enough. Though Hezbollah also for the last about 10 months has not crossed the red line. It is just about ensuring. And I personally feel that the Gaza ceasefire might just come through. The Gaza ceasefire means Hezbollah will pull back. All this was to show solidarity with Gaza and the Hamas. And once the ceasefire is there, automatically everything else will stop. And between the blue line and the
even
Litany
now,
River,
General Kulkarni, even now with the Golan Heights attack, do you think that ceasefire will come through and Prime Minister Netanyahu will work in favor of it?
See, even if the Golan Heights attack is on a Druze community, I totally agree with them. Obviously, much that they are loyal to the Israelis, there's no denying the fact. There are lots of these Druze community in the Israel armed forces also. But despite all that, Israel will not go out of it because it knows. Just imagine for the last 10 months the kind of devastation it has caused in Gaza. What is the armament left with it? Very little. Why do you think when Netanyahu is in USA to ask for it? And therefore, he's not likely to get it. And in that context, there is a little bit of constraint imposed on Israel not to attack Hezbollah. And Hezbollah also must get instigate, even supported by Iran. I do not visualize that Hezbollah would also want a war. And definitely Israel at this stage does not want to fight Hezbollah because it knows now that if it has taken it 10 months to fight Hamas, what it would take to fight Hezbollah, which is far more better equipped, far more better laid out, and far more supported by the world community. And in that context, it's so much better that US must now stand up to be able to show its leadership and be able to sort of restrain Israel to be doing anything which causes turmoil in the world.
Okay, it's going to be interesting to see whether US actually stands up for that constructively or not. But Professor Madhav Nalapat, General Kulkarni mentioned Prime Minister Netanyahu's address at that joint session of the US Congress, multiple standing ovations. He asked US to fast-track the deployment, the delivery of arms, but he also reiterated his accusation against Iran. And if we see this entire Israel-Hamas war, you've got, the three H's, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis working against Israel in this war, overtly or covertly supported by Iran. How do you see that really playing out in the near future?
Well, look, Netanyahu is an ambitious person, and now he has nothing to lose except his job. And if he loses his job, he'll likely go to jail. So he has that kind of a choice, the same choice that the Biden administration has given Trump, either become president or go to jail. I think it's a very unfortunate choice. But the fact of the matter is, again, that so far as the U.S. is concerned, the U.S. will have to go on the side of Israel and would have to intervene. And they would have to at least assist Israel in going after Hezbollah and going after, frankly, the whole of Lebanon. Now, several Israeli politicians, including some ministers in Netanyahu's government, have said that they will convert Lebanon into another Gaza. Now, everybody knows what Gaza is, and the Israelis are perfectly capable of doing so. But the point is, this is going to ignite a kind of a border war, which is definitely going to involve heavy casualties on the Israeli side as well. No matter what the American assistance, there will be heavy casualties on the American side. Don't forget, these are suicide bombers. They don't care for their lives. For them, martyrdom goes a straight passage to heaven, which is, frankly, a completely unhealthy philosophy. And that's what they believe in. So in that situation, I'd like to say that, again, the general is perfectly right that one should not, go in for this playing chicken, that, okay, I do something, then you do something else, then I do something, because that kind of an escalatory cycle, we don't know where it will end. As far as the U.S. is concerned, there's no doubt that if Israel is involved in a full-scale war, it will have to go on Israel's side. And my worry, frankly, is that Lebanon is not the problem. Iran is the problem. So in between the, settling Gaza, they have now tried, they have talked about a northern front in Lebanon. Now, in between that, the worry is that Netanyahu continues in power. They will talk about a front involving Iran. And that would really be a tremendous existential crisis for the entire Middle East. We are talking about huge spikes in oil prices. We are talking about huge disruptions in logistics. We are talking about hell let loose, frankly, because Netanyahu has been obsessed with dragging the US and getting the US to help him finish off Iran. He's been obsessed with that. And he identifies Iran as a sponsor of Hezbollah, which it is, quite frankly. It's also a part sponsor of Hamas, but there are many other sponsors, including in several other parts of the Arab world, who are not open sponsors. Iran is an open sponsor. And yes, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran are joined by what I believe is a philosophy that has ruined their safety and their people. And that is saying that Israel has no right to exist. How can you say that? Israel has every right to exist as an independent state. It's every right to exist. If it's as a Jewish state, the Jewish people suffered the worst horrible agonies during World War II, and the whole concept of Israel was to ensure that that would not happen a second time around. And after the Holocaust, the Jewish people are very clear. They will not allow a second Holocaust. You're not going to have that magnitude, certainly in this kind of a conflict. But if Iran also enters the conflict, it's going to be a significant...
leads me to my final question.
Go ahead.
General Kulkarni, just the fact that Israel will not back off, that Prime Minister Netanyahu has made clear. But with this kind of an escalation and, Iran's closeness with Russia and China, do we see some sort of blocks forming again? Not so concretely, but yes, the support is there.
Definitely. You see, China has already started playing a facilitator, mediating between the Palestinians and making PLO responsible. And you find a lot of ice, over there. Number one. Number two, find how Iranians and the Saudis have somehow sorted out their problems. Again, there you find the Chinese have stepped in to ensure. Now, if US has to show its relevance in the Middle East, this is the time for US, not anywhere. If the USA can prevent further escalation between Hezbollah and Israel, at least USA's role in Middle East would still be there. Otherwise, the Chinese are slowly and steadily going to be replacing United States in the Middle East. Would that be acceptable to United States? Definitely not. If that be so, this is the time. Netanyahu has to be told, okay, you've done enough. You failed. Your intelligence failed. Your military failed for whatever it had to do for the loss of 1,100 Israelis. You have been able to kill 39 to 40,000 of the Hamas people over there. And you've destroyed enough. Entire Gaza is flattened out. Enough is enough. Now don't open up another front with Hezbollah and create a muzzle for itself, and lots of Israelis will die, because it's not just Hezbollah fighting. You'll have the entire Islamic world getting together to fight the Israelis, which would not be easier for Israel to take on. And now is the time. I personally feel this is the right time for the United States to show its leadership, irrespective of the president elections, and be able to say, yes, Israel has been prevented from going into war with Hezbollah, even the face saving for Netanyahu, at the same time face saving for Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is not keen to start a war. It but just might instigate to see what Israel does. And if Israel falls into a trap, the loser in this entire case right now, I feel, would be Israel, not Hezbollah.
Yes.
Okay, let's see how this really pans out, and hope better sense prevails, on both sides. Of course, not just ripple effects in the global crude oil prices, but just the fact that Indians living in West Asian countries and Middle Eastern countries is close to 93 lakh. That's enough for us to be concerned about. They'll be affected as well. So we'll have to see how this really moves forward, but I'll have to wrap it up here. Thank you very much to you, General Kulkarni and Professor Madhav Nalapat, for joining us on Nation Tonight and sharing your perspective on this recent escalation in the Israel-Hamas war. Thank you very much.